Before we begin, allow yourself to relax. Let your body grow heavy. Let your thoughts slow down. This is just a quiet story. Nothing exciting will happen. Just a very old man, the wide sea, and the soft rhythm of calm waves. Let's drift into the quiet and begin. He would sit on the edge of his bed and listen to the silence. The air would be cool and still. He would hear the soft sound of the sea far away. The old man lived in a small, weathered shack at the edge of a sleepy village near the sea. The walls were made of faded wood and old palm leaves, patched together over many years. It was very simple. The boy loved the old man and cared for him. But the boy's parents had told him to work on a luckier boat. There is a big fish waiting. He would talk with the boy about baseball. They both liked the Yankees. The old man admired a player named Joe DiMaggio, who played even when he was hurt. So now, Santiago fished alone. He would pull the thin blanket over his shoulders. His bones ached a little. He did not dream of storms or fish or fights. He dreamed of lions, golden lions, walking slowly on a beach in Africa. The lions were young and strong. They played in the sand. The old man had seen them long ago when he was young. The memory stayed in his mind like a soft picture. It made him feel calm. The wind would pass through the wooden cracks in the wall. He did not complain. He was used to the sound of old things moving gently in the night. Inside, there was only one bed, a chair, and a table. There were no shiny things, just worn-out clothes, a faded blanket, and a picture of the Sacred Heart of Jesus on the wall. The air inside the room was still and smelled like salt and fish. The old man, named Santiago, was very thin. The boy would help carry Santiago's fishing gear. The old man used an old sail, patched many times with flour sacks. The sail looked like the flag of defeat, but Santiago did not feel defeated. He just waited, patiently, for the right time. His face was wrinkled, and his skin was the color of brown leather. His hands were rough with deep scars from pulling fish from the sea. He had blue eyes, but the old man did not mind. He believed that luck would return, slowly, like the tides. They were tired, but still clear like the ocean on a quiet day. Every morning, he woke up early, before the sun rose. He moved slowly, quietly. He had not caught a fish for 84 days. People in the village thought he was unlucky. They whispered that he was too old now. He had a young boy who used to fish with him. The boy's name was Manolin. Still, each day, the boy would come to see him. He brought food, sometimes. They would talk quietly. The boy would ask, "Can I go with you again someday?" The old man would smile slowly. "Yes," he said, "maybe soon, I feel it." At night, the old man would eat a small meal. Then, when the sky turned dark, Santiago would lie on his bed. As he fell asleep, he would dream. And so the night passed. The sea waited. The stars stood still. The old man rested. The sun had not yet risen. The sky was a pale gray, just starting to lighten at the edges. The village was still sleeping. Only the soft sound of waves touching the shore could be heard. Santiago rose from his bed with slow, careful movements. His bones felt stiff, but he didn't complain. He rowed. His arms moved slowly, steadily. The oars dipped into the water without a splash. The sea welcomed him quietly. The boat moved gently over the small waves, like a cradle rocking back and forth. The light was soft at first, spreading slowly across the water. The sea was calm, and the boat moved like it had all the time in the world. Santiago looked at the birds flying above. They were small and black, gliding low over the waves. He watched one dip down toward the surface. That meant fish were near. He was used to the slow ache of age. Soon he saw flying fish break the surface, silver and quick. "Where is your ship?" he asked. "Are you lost, little friend?" He had spent his life with the sea. He knew that it worked slowly. There was no rush. Whatever was down there, it was large. It took the bait without fear, without rush. Santiago held the line gently, letting it slip out a little at a time. He knew not to pull yet. The fish was circling, testing. There was only quiet and time and trust. The bird chirped once, then sat still. It was tired. The boat rocked slightly. The line cut into his palms slightly, but he held firm. The boat jerked forward. The fish was swimming strong, deep below. It didn't rise. It moved far out, pulling the boat slowly behind it. It was a soft tug, just once. He simply held the line and let the fish pull. The boat moved over the sea, quiet and alone, following something powerful and unseen. Santiago felt it through his hand. He waited, still as a stone. Then the line pulled again, a little stronger. The bird rode the motion, breathing slow. After a while, it flew away, heading north. The sun was above him now, hot and still. His eyes watched the line. His fingers felt every motion. Then, without warning, the line pulled hard tight, fast. The fish was hooked. Then he saw something larger dolphins, chasing the flying fish. It was a sign. The sea was alive today. There would be something. There had to be. He put on his faded shirt and trousers. The water here was deeper, darker. The land was no longer in sight. Only sea and sky, meeting in every direction. The boat moved slightly with the rhythm of the waves. The sun was higher now, warm on his shoulders. He adjusted his straw hat to shade his eyes. He sipped some water from his bottle. He watched the line, feeling the pull of the current through his fingers. It was gentle, steady. The sea was like a soft voice that never stopped. The water sparkled under the sun. A few clouds drifted across the sky like lazy sheep. A jellyfish floated near the surface, its body glowing softly. Santiago watched it move, slow and calm. He didn't like jellyfish, but he respected them. Everything in the sea had a purpose. Each one dropped to a different depth. He wanted to fish right, not just hope. He checked the tension, watched the line trail out behind the boat. He tied the coils so they would lie easily in the sun. Each one was smooth, neat, and ready. It whispered around him, sometimes friendly, sometimes distant. He called it La Mar, like a woman. He did not think of it as something to conquer. He thought of it as something to live with, to understand. He wrapped the sail carefully and placed it over his shoulders like a bundle. He held 2 cups of coffee, warm and simple. They did not talk much. There was no need. The boats were lined up quietly, like resting animals. Santiago's skiff was small and old. Its wood was dark and marked by years of salt and water. The boy helped push the boat gently into the water. The old man climbed in with care. He arranged his gear, a coiled line, a bait box, and the harpoon. Each item had its place. Each one had been with him through many quiet mornings like this. The boy handed Santiago the cup, and the old man nodded with thanks. They drank their coffee slowly. The air was still cool, and the sky was changing softly from gray to pale blue. The sail was heavy, but not too heavy for him. He had carried it for many years. He walked out into the quiet, dusty street. The dust felt soft under his feet. The village dogs didn't bark. Even they seemed to still be dreaming. The boy Manolin was waiting for him. When they finished, the boy walked with him to the shore. He did not use an engine. The boy stood on the shore, watching until the boat became small against the horizon. Then he turned back toward the village. Out on the sea, Santiago rowed steadily. He liked being alone on the water. The sky turned golden as the sun rose. He followed the bird's path. Santiago rowed farther than most fishermen went. He wanted to find something big, something worth waiting for. He prepared his lines. He had 4 of them, all baited carefully. Then he waited. Waiting on the sea is quiet work. Hours passed. A warbler, a small bird, landed on the boat. It rested near the mast. Santiago spoke to it gently. Santiago smiled. "Fly carefully," he said. "The sea is wide." The waiting continued. The old man was patient. Suddenly, just before noon, one of the lines moved. He sat up straight. He let the line run through his fingers slowly. He waited. Santiago braced his hands and leaned back. The old man said nothing. The fish swam steadily. It did not leap. The boat followed the path of the fish, dragged slowly but without pause. The sea around him was calm and wide. There was no land in sight, only the shimmer of water in every direction. The fish did not come up. It stayed deep. It did not thrash. It moved with quiet strength, pulling the boat farther out to sea. Santiago held the line with both hands, his arms firm but not stiff. The line stretched deep into the water, disappearing into the blue. He took a bite of the food. He had packed a small piece of tuna, dried and plain. It gave him just enough strength to keep going. The wind had gone still. The boat moved only because of the fish below. The sun was now high in the sky. Santiago sat still. His back leaned slightly against the mast for support. The wood was old, and the sun had dried it over many years. It made small sounds with every shift. Santiago listened to them. The sun began to lower in the sky. It turned from bright white to gold, then orange. Santiago's arms were tired, but he stayed strong. His left hand cramped once, tightening into a stiff claw. He opened and closed it slowly, breathing calmly. He knew it would pass. They were familiar, sounds old friends. The sea whispered, two small waves brushing against the side of the boat. We will do this the right way. The line cut into his hands, but he did not move them. He shifted just enough to stay balanced. Santiago looked at the horizon, but there was nothing there, only the curve of the sea meeting the sky. The first stars blinked gently in the sky, like slow, sleepy eyes opening not yet. If he slept, he might lose the fish. "You are tired, fish," he said. The fish responded, pulling harder for a moment, then settling again. It was still strong, still deep, but it was not afraid. Santiago liked that. He liked the dignity of the fish, and I am tired, too. But we are not done, not yet. He rested when he could, but always kept one hand on the line. His arms ached, his shoulders were sore, his legs had gone stiff, but still he waited. He had done this before, he would do it again. And this fish was the biggest he had ever felt, bigger than anything in his youth. It was noble. It deserved his respect. The world had become very simple. A small boat, a strong fish, and an old man with patient hands. They moved slowly overhead, just like the sea moved below. He thought about the lions, again the golden ones, in his dreams. Young lions, playing on the beach in Africa, strong and proud. The memory made him feel warm, even as the night grew cool. It gave just enough light to see the outline of the boat, the lines, his hands. Everything else was shadow and quiet. He whispered to himself, not out of fear or worry, but just to keep company. His voice was soft, just the sea, the fish, and the old man drifting together. He rested one leg against the side of the boat to brace himself better. Only the stars, moving quietly overhead. The boat drifted like a leaf, and deep below, the fish continued to swim in long, wide circles. He could not see the fish, but he could feel it, deep below, still swimming, still strong. The old man closed his eyes for a moment and listened. The sea breathed slowly around him. The boat moved just a little. The line stayed tight. He kept the line over his shoulders, using his whole body to hold it now. His back and neck grew stiff, but he did not complain. This was how it had to be. "He is strong," he said, "much stronger than I thought." He could feel when it turned, when it slowed, when it pulled harder. The fish was smart. It stayed far beneath the surface, where it was dark and safe. The old man did not panic. He did not try to pull the fish up. He knew better. This fish was too big. It was not time yet. He had to wait until the fish grew tired. That could take hours, maybe days. He was ready for that. He could help hold the line, or bring me some water, or just talk a little. He looked at the line. It was thick and strong, but he knew it could still break if pulled too hard. His hands were sore, and the sun was warm on his neck, but he stayed still. The sea was so quiet now that every splash, every shift in the water, seemed louder than it really was. He drank a little water from his bottle. It tasted warm, but it helped. "I wish the boy were here," Santiago whispered, but he was alone. The fish swam deep, not fast, but steady. Santiago felt every motion through the line. The boat creaked softly. Hours passed. He kept talking softly, to himself, to the fish, and maybe to the sea. "Fish," he said, "you are my brother. I will not let you go, but I will not hurry you either." The boat was moving farther and farther from the land. As the sun touched the water, the sky began to darken. Soft colors appeared: purple, pale blue, a little red. Santiago knew the night would be long. He prepared himself. He shifted his weight. Darkness fell slowly. The sea turned black and silver. The stars spread wide above him. He looked at the moon. It was a soft, round light above the water. A gentle breeze returned, brushing against his skin. It was cool and soft. It smelled like salt and distance. He opened his eyes again. He could not sleep. He watched the stars. He spoke again, barely louder than the breeze. He shifted the line a little, careful not to jerk it. He sat quietly in the dark. The sea was silent now, only the sound of water touching the boat. Santiago stayed awake. The night grew deeper. The stars hung high, unmoving. The moonlight touched the surface of the sea in a long silver path. It was very quiet. He sat still in the boat, the line stretched tight in his hands. The fish was swimming in wide circles below, far below where the moonlight could reach. Santiago could feel the slow motion through the line. The fish was not resting, but it was not fighting hard either. It was waiting, just like the old man. His body ached in many places, now his back, his shoulders, his neck. But he did not complain. He only shifted his weight now and then to stay balanced. The old man closed his eyes for a moment, just to feel it. He didn't sleep. He only let his thoughts grow quiet, like the sea. "You are a fine fish," he whispered, "strong and brave. I hope I can be worthy of you." It wasn't much, but it kept him strong. He drank water again. Not much, just a few sips. The sun had gone, and the night air was cooler now. He followed it with his eyes, but did not speak. It disappeared quickly. Other fish swam beneath him, too, but he did not see them. He only felt them, a faint shift in the water. The sea was alive all around, but quiet. Then there was only the sea and the stars again. His shirt was thin, and the breeze made him shiver once or twice, but he did not worry. He had been colder before. This was nothing new. He didn't want to waste any. The water would have to last. The fish was with him. The sea was with him. And the stars, too. It stayed close, but not at the bottom. It was coming up, slowly. The circles were getting smaller. The boat drifted slowly, carried by the pull of the great fish below. It was waiting, just like the man. His teeth were worn, and his lips were dry, but the smile stayed for a while. His body felt heavy, but his hands were steady. He took another sip of water. The stars began to fade, just a little. The edge of the sky turned pale, like morning was far away, but slowly coming. He wrapped the line carefully around his shoulders. He whispered to the fish, "Come up, my brother, let me see you." The sea rocked it just enough to make a rhythm. The line stayed tight. The fish still swam, and Santiago, in the quiet of the early morning dark, did not sleep. The rest was black, still and wide. He felt very small in the middle of it, but not afraid. The sea was part of him now. He had known it longer than he had known anything else. Santiago had not slept. His eyes were tired, but they stayed open. He had watched them for many years, from many boats. They were old friends. The North Star stayed steady. The others moved slowly, circling like time itself. Not fast, but slowly, like a candle burning down. He only adjusted it to keep it from rubbing too much. The movement made his fingers sting, but he stayed still after. The fish had noticed. The way he brought food, the way he asked questions, the way he listened. He missed his voice. He missed his hands helping with the lines. He would be proud, Santiago thought. He would want to see this fish. It gave one short tug in return, then continued its silent path below. Still strong, still dangerous, but beginning to weaken. The line still pulled down, deep into the dark water. It did not move quickly. He looked up at the stars again. They blinked gently in the dark sky. He knew some of their names. Younger nights. Nights when he had fought other fish in other waters. He had been holding the line so long that the skin had begun to break. Small cuts had opened on his palms, red and raw, but the line was steady. That was all that mattered. He remembered the weight of the line, the feel of a fish moving deep below. The water around the boat was dark and smooth, except for the faint trail behind where the boat had been pulled. It had been like this before, but this fish was the biggest of them all. The breeze returned for a little while. It brushed across his arms and face. It was cool, but soft. He remembered other nights. Sometimes he spoke softly to himself. His left hand had stopped cramping. He opened and closed it gently. The pain had faded to a dull throb. The boat rocked slightly, not much, just enough to feel the sea's movement. The waves were soft, like breathing. Santiago ate a little more from the small package in his boat. He shifted his shoulders slowly. The muscles were sore. He watched the sky. A shooting star crossed overhead. A small fish brushed against the boat. He heard it before he saw it. It made a faint splash, then swam away. Time passed slowly. The fish below kept swimming in circles. Santiago knew what that meant. The fish was tiring. Little by little, the old man shifted the line again. He did not pull. Santiago looked at the water. It was so dark now that he could only see the shine of the stars reflected on the surface. He thought of the boy again. He smiled a little, just a small smile, soft and quiet. The night went on, still no sleep, still no rest. But Santiago did not feel lonely. The fish began to rise, just a little. Santiago could feel the line change. It didn't pull so deep now. The old man leaned forward, not to pull, but to be ready. His muscles were stiff, but awake. But the fish stayed down, close, but not at the surface. Santiago rubbed his eyes. They were dry. He sat still, with the line in his hands, watching the dark sea, waiting. The boat floated gently. The sky began to soften, just a little at first. A pale light touched the edge of the world, where sea and sky met. He had been watching the sky for hours, feeling time move without clocks. He shifted slightly in the boat. The pull of the line had changed. The old man could feel it. The fish was getting tired. The muscles in his back were stiff. His hands were sore and cracked, but they still held the line. Not blue yet, just soft grays, a little silver. The waves looked smoother in the morning light. The boat rocked gently, its wooden sides creaking from time to time. A gull flew overhead, crying once, then vanished into the clouds. It was not full morning yet, only the hint of it, but the stars grew fainter, and the blackness of night turned into a deep gray. The sun had not yet risen, but its presence could be felt. The sea reflected the change, shimmering softly like polished glass. Small fish darted near the surface, catching the light much longer. "You are beautiful," he said to the shadow, "and strong." The fish did not break the surface, but its shape moved below, silent and massive. A few birds flew low, their wings gliding just above the waves. Then the light spread quickly, turning the sky pink and orange. The clouds turned soft colors, pale rose, dusty gold. The sea reflected it all, moving gently beneath the boat. Only respect. The fish rose, not quickly, but slowly, steadily. Santiago could feel it. Then he tightened it again, gently. He did not want to force it. The sun was rising, the day was beginning, and Santiago knew he could not wait forever. He wanted the fish to come up on its own when it was ready. He had fought many fish in his life, some small, some large, but never one like this. A great marlin, long and silver blue, with a sword like a lance. It was beautiful. The way it moved, the way it turned it, was like watching a king in the water. The sun was warm, to the sea, to himself. We are only two creatures who must do what we must. The sea was wide and blue, never one that pulled him so far and for so long. Another shadow passed under the boat. The strength was there, but it had begun to fade. The fish had pulled the boat through the night, through miles of open sea, but it was growing tired. This time, it stayed longer. Santiago saw the wide back, the long fin. He saw the shape of the tail, slow and powerful. He wiped his face with the back of his hand, then returned both hands to the line. He did not want to lose focus. He thought about how deep the fish must be, how far it had swum. It was a wide arc, slow and smooth. The boat followed. The water whispered against the hull. The sun climbed higher. Light sparkled on the small waves. The old man adjusted it slowly, wrapping it carefully around his shoulders again. He breathed deep. His ribs ached, but his hands stayed firm. The fish swam on. The line stayed tight. It was a great fish, noble and careful. It tasted like salt and old oil, but he needed the strength. He drank a few sips of water, maybe the biggest fish anyone had ever seen in these waters, and it was still fighting. The bottle was half empty now. He would have to be careful. "I love you, fish," he said, "very much, but I will kill you before this day ends." The old man noticed the change in the light. It brushed against the sail, but the sail was still down. The boat was not sailing, it was being pulled. The fish was still there, still swimming, still circling. But now the circles were smaller, not as wide or deep as before. He moved slowly, like someone waking up after a long rest. His knees were stiff, his arms trembled a little, but his face was calm. It pulled back, firm and slow. It was still strong. Santiago nodded quietly to himself. Not yet, he said, but soon. Santiago breathed slowly. He said nothing. He only watched the line and waited. The water around the boat began to show color again. The skin had torn where the line had pressed all night, but he did not wrap them. He needed to know everything the fish was doing. The old man leaned forward and tugged on the line just a little, just enough to see. The fish responded. He ate a piece of dried fish, chewing slowly. His arms were sore. His hands were red and open in places. He spoke again, softly. There was no anger in his voice. The light grew stronger. The sky turned blue at the edges. The fish moved again. The line dipped. Santiago braced himself. He pulled gently, testing. Then, for the first time, he saw it. It was just a glimpse, dark shadow under the water, wide and long, longer than the boat. Santiago whispered, "I," under his breath. He could not believe its size. The fish sank again, not deep, just enough to disappear. The line remained tight. Now he knew. This was the biggest fish he had ever hooked. The sun began to rise. A thin golden line appeared above the sea. Santiago blinked in the light. His eyes were dry. A breeze came in from the east, warm and steady. The old man shifted again. The fish turned. Santiago could feel it. The pull on the line changed direction. He let the line slide out just a little, not too much, just enough to follow the fish's movement. But time was moving. The fish came close again. It was a marlin. Santiago whispered, "Come up, brother. Let me see you again." The fish moved deeper once more, but not far. The circles were tighter now. The old man rested the line across his back again. He shifted his weight. He looked at the sky. The clouds were thin. There was no sound but the wind, the waves, and the quiet voice of the old man. Speaking gently to the fish, "We are not enemies," he said. "You and I." The boat rocked slightly, and the old man waited. The sun rose fully now, warm and steady in the clear sky. It cast a golden light over the water, turning the surface into a sheet of soft, broken glass. The pull had changed, less fierce now, but still strong. The marlin was growing tired, but it would not give up easily. Santiago understood that. Small waves lapped gently against the side of the boat, making a soft, regular sound. The breeze was light and kind. It touched his face like a whisper, cooling the sweat that had dried on his skin. Everything was still. He was tired too, but he would not stop. The boat drifted gently, still tethered by the great fish that moved in slow, wide circles beneath. He saw its long, dark body pass just beneath the boat. It moved with grace. Its great tail swung side to side, carving the water in slow arcs. Its dorsal fin sliced the surface, only for a moment, before slipping below. The circles were smaller, the pull was softer, but it still had strength. Santiago knew he had to be ready. Santiago sat with the line resting across his shoulders and hands, feeling each motion from the deep. They called softly to each other, flying in lazy patterns. Far off, a cloud drifted across the sky, its edges bright with morning light. The sea below was a deep, endless blue, not to use yet, just to have it ready. He drank from the bottle, just one sip. The water was warm now, but he was thankful for it. He stretched his legs. It kept his thoughts steady, one at a time, careful not to disturb the line. And the fish below moved with deep power. The muscles in his neck pulled, but he did not cry out. He had become quiet inside, like the sea. The sea around him was calm. He looked down at his hands. Santiago leaned back, using his shoulders and back to absorb the weight. The boat turned with the motion, drifting in slow spirals across the sea. The skin had opened in places. The rough line had cut into the palms and fingers. There were small streaks of dried blood. He leaned back with all his weight, digging his heels into the wood of the boat. The fish was not done yet. Its body was growing tired. Santiago could feel it. He knew it would soon rise again, and next time it might stay. It was still fighting. The marlin made another slow circle. The boat followed, and Santiago held the line, eyes fixed on the surface, waiting. He reached for the harpoon again. He breathed in slowly. Then he waited. But he had stopped feeling the pain some time ago. It had become part of him now, something quiet, something ordinary. Only the whisper of wind, only the soft creak of wood, only the slow breathing of an old man waiting to face the fish of his life. You are the greatest fish I have ever known. The fish came up again. His hands bled. He could feel the fish tiring more now. Following the path of the marlin, his back ached. Still he held the line. Still he waited. It lay in the bottom of the boat, wrapped in cloth, beside the gaff and the line coils. Its skin was smooth and silver blue, shining like wet steel. Its eyes were dark. It turned its head slightly, as if to look at the man above. He moved slowly, never letting go of the fishing line. Every movement was careful, quiet, patient. His eyes blinked slowly, but he would not let them close. Not yet, not now. Santiago breathed in slowly. You are noble, he said. He adjusted the line a little, careful not to startle the fish. It was getting closer to the surface. He could feel it. He reached for the harpoon. He placed the harpoon within reach. The fish pulled again. Overhead, a few birds circled. Santiago ate a little more of the dried fish. It was hard and salty, but it gave him energy. I must keep my strength, he said. He will come up soon. He spoke often now, not loudly, just small things to himself or to the fish. It made him feel less alone. You are tired, he said softly, and so am I. But we have come too far to stop now. The fish made another circle. Santiago leaned into it. His hands tightened slightly. His back straightened. Then, suddenly, the fish pulled harder, not wild, but firm. The line jerked. Santiago almost lost his grip. The boat turned again, a little faster this time. Water splashed against the side. The sun shone bright on the sea. "You are a strong one," Santiago whispered through his teeth. "But I am not giving up." His arms burned. Then the fish turned again, slower this time. The pressure eased, just a little. Santiago adjusted the line. He breathed deeply. The sun moved higher in the sky. The heat pressed down gently. The boat rocked in the motion of the sea. Santiago felt his body grow heavy. He had not slept. He had eaten only a little. His legs were numb. The fish surfaced again, closer this time. Its body shimmered in the light. It was long, longer than Santiago had imagined. Santiago stared back. "Beautiful," he whispered. "So beautiful." The fish slipped beneath the surface again, but not deep. He prepared himself. He wrapped the line more carefully. The sea was quiet again. Time passed gently. The shadows on the boat shifted with the sun, waiting for the moment, waiting for the fish. The sun stood high now, watching from above. The sea glimmered around the small boat, soft with motion. His body spoke to him in dull aches and gentle pains. Now it had begun to rise again. Santiago could feel it more clearly with every pass beneath the boat, but his mind was still steady, still clear. He kept both hands on the line. He could feel the fish still down there, circling, always circling, but slower now. The water sparkled here and there, where light touched the peaks of small waves. Everything else was quiet. Santiago shifted in the boat. His back was stiff, his arms heavy. He had not slept. The pull was weaker. Still strong, but not as fierce. The fish had pulled all night. He sat upright, his spine straightened. His shoulders tensed, but he did not move too fast. His hands gripped the line tighter. He reached with one hand and slowly took up some of the line, just a little. Then he held still. Santiago took another coil of line and pulled slowly, guiding the marlin nearer. The fish responded with a short pull, not a struggle, just strength. Its back arched, and its tall dorsal fin caught the sun. Santiago gasped softly. It was the first time he had truly seen all of it, how massive it was, how graceful. The marlin rose again. Its dark back broke the surface, calm and steady. "I have waited so long for you." Its long dorsal fin cut the water cleanly. Its tail swayed back and forth, but it no longer carved deep turns. Its body was wide and full of power. It dove again, pulling the boat forward with a burst of strength. Its color was beautiful dark blue on the back, light silver on the sides. The sunlight danced across its scales. It passed beneath the boat, slow and wide. Santiago could see the full shape of it now. Santiago braced himself, pressing his feet against the boat's edge. He held the line and waited. Its eye was open, its body calm. Its size was hard to believe. The sea rolled softly beneath the boat. The sun shone above, wide and warm. It leapt slow, powerful, rising from the water with a deep splash. Its body twisted. He pulled the line gently, drawing the marlin toward the boat. It resisted, but without much force. He looked out at the sea. It was calm now. The waves moved gently, small and silver in the light. The sky was pale blue. It came slowly now, heavy with weight and silence. His fingers were raw. His back ached from the pull of the line, but he felt no pain in his heart, only quiet. Its tail hit the surface, sending up foam and spray. He could see the eyes, large and black, looking forward, the great jaw, the thick tail. Its movements slowed again. The circles were smaller now and closer to the boat. Santiago looked at it. He had seen large fish before, but never like this. The fish was longer than his skiff. Its body lay half in the water, half resting against the boat. It was so large that the boat tilted slightly. Then it rose once more, circling the boat in a wide arc. Santiago leaned over and slowly pulled in the line. Not much, just a few inches at a time. The fish did not fight as it had before. It was tired, but it was not finished. He spoke to the fish softly. "Come up, my friend." The fish disappeared again, only for a moment. The old man rested the line on his shoulders. He shifted his weight. His feet pressed against the bottom of the boat. He kept the harpoon close. It lay ready beside him. He watched carefully. The marlin came again, closer. The old man whispered. The boat rocked gently in the small waves. The breeze brushed against Santiago's face. He squinted into the light. The fish turned again. It came up on the other side, not far from the boat. Then the marlin broke the surface fully. It rose beside the boat, slow and heavy. Water slid down its sides. The marlin hung there, just below the surface. The line was stretched tight. Santiago leaned forward. He reached for the harpoon. The old wood of the boat creaked beneath him. The wind moved softly around them. The sea held its breath. With both hands, Santiago lifted the harpoon. The sun was hot on his neck. His arms shook. His shoulders burned. Then, with a slow breath, he drove the harpoon down. It struck the marlin behind the head. The fish reacted at once. Santiago fell back slightly, gripping the line with both hands. The fish was hooked deep now. It turned sharply. The boat jerked. Water spilled over the sides. The line snapped tight. The marlin swam hard, but not for long. The struggle was brief. It had lost too much. The harpoon had cut deep. Santiago leaned forward once more. He tied the line around the bow, fastening the fish to the side of the skiff. Santiago sat down, breathing slowly. He looked at the fish, long and still, beside him. "You were a great one," Santiago said quietly. "Thank you." The breeze moved again, brushing past them gently. The old man's hands trembled. He rested for a moment, sitting still. He had done it. He had caught the fish, and now, slowly, it was time to go home. The marlin was tied securely to the side of the skiff. Its long body floated beside the boat, heavy and still. The sea held it gently, cradling it as if in a final sleep. Its wide tail touched the waves with the softest motion. The line stretched from the fish to the bow, quiet and firm. Santiago sat for a moment longer. His hands rested on his knees, open and tired. He looked at the fish. The size of it still amazed him. Longer than the boat, thicker than his chest. A deep, beautiful blue, fading to silver along its belly. It had fought so long, so strong, and with such grace. The sun warmed his shoulders. The sky above was wide and pale. A few small clouds drifted lazily across the blue. The sea around the boat was calm, its surface smooth, with small swells that rose and fell like slow breathing. It rippled the water gently and cooled the back of his neck. Sometimes he saw small fish darting beneath the surface. They moved quickly, light and playful. Their backs broke the surface in soft arcs. Then they disappeared, gone to deeper places. Santiago smiled. "You are lucky," he said to them. "You can play." Sometimes a bird flew overhead, its wings stretched wide, circling, quiet. He breathed in and let the air fill his lungs. The smell of salt and fish and sun was familiar, comforting. Then, slowly, he began to row. Santiago reached for the oars. His hands trembled, but he wrapped his fingers around the wood. He placed the blades in the water, drawn by the smell of blood in the water. His arms were slow, but he moved with care. The shark came fast, straight and strong. It bit into the marlin near the tail, tearing away a piece of flesh. It had come to take what it could. The skiff moved with quiet effort. The weight of the marlin pulled on one side, but Santiago was used to such balance. His legs shook beneath him. He had caught the fish, but keeping it would be another battle. The waves rolled gently. The sound of the oars was slow and even. The sea around him was bright and calm. The breeze moved softly. The marlin lay beside the boat, still long and wide, but marked now by the bite of the shark. Santiago pulled the shaft back and stabbed again. The shark let go. It sank into the sea, vanishing in a red trail. He lifted the harpoon with both hands and drove it down. Then the dark shape of a shark rising toward the marlin. His back felt stretched thin, but only because I loved you enough to stay. As if it had been wound too tightly and left that way for too long. But he did not rush. He rowed with small, even strokes. His hands stung from the open cuts. He looked at them, red and swollen. He moved his fingers slowly, testing them. They still worked. That was enough. His heart beat against his ribs like a soft drum, pointing the bow toward the place where the shore would be. He could not see land yet. It was still far, but he knew the way. He leaned gently into each stroke. The oars dipped in and out of the sea, soft and steady. The sound of water lapping against the hull was rhythmic, peaceful. The boat creaked in its usual way. The world around him was warm and slow. The sea remained calm. The waves rose softly, then fell away. But Santiago's heart had grown quiet. The boat floated easily over them, like a leaf carried by a stream. He was very tired. His arms were sore. He looked once more at the marlin beside him. "You are mine," he said softly. He rowed on. Then he began to row once more. Santiago began to feel the sun more now. It touched his skin, warming the salt crusted on his arms and face. A breeze drifted over the surface of the sea. Time passed, but he did not watch it. He only rowed. He watched the water. Once, a pair of dolphins swam beside the boat for a short while. He rowed on. Then, without warning, he felt a sudden pull on the boat. It was not from the fish. It was from below. He looked down and saw a flash of silver gray, a sharp fin. A second one. Santiago's breath slowed. He knew what it was. A mako shark. The old man reached for his harpoon. The boat rocked gently. Santiago stood. The harpoon struck deep. The shark twisted in the water. Blood clouded the surface. The old man sat down again. He breathed heavily. He looked at the marlin. A piece of it was gone. Blood flowed into the sea. It would not be the last shark. He said nothing. He rested his hands on the oars again. The sun was still high. The sky was bright. He knew the sharks would come. The sea gave, and the sea took. He rowed with steady strokes. Santiago kept going. He looked forward. Still no land. But he knew it was there. The sun rose higher, calm and steady above the sea. The boat moved forward slowly. Santiago kept rowing, his hands resting on the worn handles of the oars. Each stroke was soft, even, without rush. Its long silver-blue sides shimmered in the light, though part of its tail was now torn. A piece was missing, where the shark had taken its bite. The old man didn't look at the wound. He had seen it once, and knew more would come. The sea spread out wide in all directions, shining quietly beneath the blue sky. Beside him, the marlin's body floated still, tied to the skiff with coarse rope. The water was a deep blue near the horizon, and lighter closer to the boat, where the sun reached through it. Small fish swam below, and here and there seaweed drifted like slow dancers, waving in gentle rhythms. He had fought the fish. Now he would fight for the fish. The sea was very clear. Santiago rested for a while, the oars beside him floating in the stillness. His hands were open on his lap, stiff and red. The lines in his palms were raw and cracked. The cuts were not fresh now. Their dark shapes moved just below the water, silent and smooth. Their eyes were black. He struck once more, and the shark sank below, wounded but not gone. Their mouths, just slightly open, showed the tips of rows and rows of teeth. The clean shape of the fish had begun to break. They had dried in the heat, but they throbbed with every motion. He looked at them. He didn't frown. He picked up the harpoon again. His knees trembled, but he was steady. He watched the water. They creaked and strained, but still they worked. He only watched them quietly, as if they belonged to someone else. The light was soft again, beginning to lean toward the west. Shadows stretched across the water. The breeze picked up slightly. It touched the waves and made them ripple gently. Then he heard a sound, a splash. I should have stayed closer. A small wave against the side of the boat. He turned. Santiago knew this time he would not be able to stop them all. He fought them. He struck when they came close. He struck with the harpoon one more time, then watched it fall into the sea, stuck in the body of a sinking shark. He shouted once or twice, not with anger, but with effort. His harpoon was still sharp, but his strength was not. The water around him remained wide and empty. Once in a while, he saw a bird pass high above, a small shape moving across the sky. It made no sound. The long white spine, the broad rib bones, and the sharp head with its long nose, shaking its body as it tore a piece free. There, beneath the surface, he saw the sharp fin again, but not just one. This time there were two. Galano sharks. They swam in slow, circling patterns around the marlin. The sky began to change, growing softer in color, turning toward evening. He was far from land still, but the path was clear. His arms moved slowly, with the weight of a man who had given all he had, but still went on. Santiago stood slowly, the way it holds all things that are lost and loved. The great fish began to lose its shape. One of the sharks struck. It came up fast and bit into the marlin's side near the head. The shark rolled and twisted, the water turning red. It let go of the marlin and swam downward, trailing blood. Santiago leaned forward and struck with the harpoon. The wood split the water with a dull splash. The harpoon found its mark. The second shark came next. Santiago pulled the harpoon free and struck again. His breath was heavy. His shoulders burned. He sat back down, breathing slowly. The marlin floated beside the boat. More of it was gone now. The belly was open. The bones showed through in places. Santiago said nothing. He looked at the sky. The sun had moved past noon. The old man picked up the oars again and began to row. His arms moved like old hinges. He spoke quietly to the fish beside him. "I am sorry," he said. "I went too far out." The sea did not answer. He rowed for a long time. The wind touched his face. His hat flapped slightly in the breeze. Then more fins appeared. 2, then 3. They came one by one, then together. The sharks circled again. He stood again. He hurt one. He wounded another. But still they bit. The marlin's body broke apart. Little by little, the tail disappeared. The skin tore. Santiago's arms trembled. The weapon was gone. He sat back down. His hands rested in his lap. They were trembling now. His shoulders ached. His breath came slow. The sea had grown quiet again. The sharks were gone for now. The marlin was still tied to the boat, but only the skeleton remained. Santiago looked at it. "You were worth it," he said, "even if they took you." The wind shifted. The boat rocked slightly. He picked up the oars again, and he rowed. The sea rolled gently beneath him. The marlin's skeleton floated beside him, white and clean. The sea held it quietly. The sea had begun to change colors again. The sky turned soft, moving from pale blue to a gentle gold, then to a deeper shade of orange. The wood handles rubbed against the sore spots in his palms, where the skin had broken and peeled. His fingers were stiff. His back bent forward just slightly, not in pain, but in the quiet weight of exhaustion. Still, he rode. He had seen it for what it was, a great creature, proud and strong. What remained was not the fish itself, pushing the smell of salt and seaweed across the surface. Far off, seabirds called to one another, their voices faint and drifting, but only what the sea had allowed to stay. He felt no anger. He only felt stillness. The sun, now low in the sky, cast long streaks of light across the water. The boat moved forward, slowly, steadily, pulled by the soft rhythm of Santiago's oars. Behind his eyelids, he saw the fish again, not the skeleton, but the full, living fish. The way it had leaped, each motion was slower than the last. His arms no longer burned. They had become numb, or something beyond numb, like part of the boat, or the sea, or the sky. The sky above turned a deep blue, then darker. The fish's bones moved with the boat, gliding softly in the darkening water. The sound of the oars dipping in and out of the sea was the only rhythm. There was no need for thought now, no need for words, the kind that fades as soon as it appears, almost only movement. The last light of the sun faded into the sea. Night was coming again. Even in death, it seemed to guide the boat, to move with it, not as cargo, but as something that had once lived with purpose, the way it had circled. It felt cool now, brushing over his worn clothes, over the dried salt on his skin. It would not be long now, or if he was asleep, dreaming, the way Santiago used to dream of lions. Not fierce, not loud, just strong and sure. The sea beneath it was dark now, but not frightening. Santiago had always trusted the sea, even when it took things away, even when it did not answer. He watched them in his mind as he rowed, one stroke at a time. The wind brought the faintest scent of land, dry grass, earth, and wood smoke. He could not see the village, but he could feel it, the deep blue of its back, the silver along its side. It moved in silence in his mind, not fighting now, only swimming. His arms ached with every stroke. The marlin's skeleton floated beside the skiff, tied firmly with rough rope. It was almost ghost-like now, just one, a small, steady glow far off, a lamp in a window, a house, a sign that someone waited on land. Only the spine, the long, sharp head, and the curved bones remained. Where there had once been smooth blue skin and thick muscle, now there was only white, clean bone and quiet motion. Santiago did not look at the fish often anymore. The waves were gentle in the evening. They lapped softly against the side of the boat. The breeze had returned, light and steady. Santiago blinked slowly. His hands, he could no longer feel the full touch of the oar in his palms, but his body moved anyway, the way the sea moved, the way time moved, gently without thinking. His eyes were dry. The sun touched the edges of the horizon now. It sat low, like a coin pressed gently into the sky. The oars floated on the surface of the water, waiting. They flickered like small, quiet thoughts, hanging far above. The light grew softer with each minute. Shadows stretched across the bottom of the boat. He stopped rowing for a moment. The boat drifted on its own. His hands rested on his knees. He looked at the sky. A few stars were beginning to show. One, then two, then a dozen more. The old man closed his eyes for a moment, not to sleep, but to rest. He opened his eyes again and picked up the oars. The boat rocked as he shifted his weight. He rowed again. The shore was still far, but he knew it was there. The stars grew brighter. Santiago rowed in silence. Once he looked back over his shoulder. He thought he saw a light. He smiled gently. It was not a wide smile, just a soft one. The kind that comes from remembering something kind. He spoke softly to the fish. "We are almost home, my friend." The marlin said nothing. It floated beside the skiff, quiet in the sea. The old man rowed on. The night deepened. The stars now filled the sky. They hung above him, motionless. The breeze touched his cheek like a whisper. He began to feel his legs again. They were tired. His back throbbed. His neck had stiffened. The shore grew closer, though he could not yet see the sand. He watched the horizon. He listened for the sound of waves touching land. He remembered the boy. He wondered if Manolin was waiting, sitting by the road, looking toward the water. He thought of the lions again. They walked slowly across the sand in his memory. Young lions, golden and tall. The boat floated forward. The fish's bones glowed faintly in the starlight, pale and long. The water whispered around them. The skiff moved gently through the night, toward the shore that waited without sound. The boat neared the shore. It was late, now very late. The sky above was dark and full of stars, too many to count. They stretched across the sky like dust, glowing softly. The moon had not risen yet, and the sea was almost black, except for the silver light that shimmered from the stars above. Santiago could see the faint outline of the coast ahead. It was low and still. The small houses of the village stood like quiet shapes in the dark. No lights in the windows. No voices. He let the boat drift until it came close to the beach. Then, carefully, he stepped out into the shallow water. Only the sound of the waves brushing gently against the rocks. He rowed slower now. The water near the shore was calm and shallow. The bottom of the sea rose gently beneath the skiff, and the sound of the oars grew softer, closer. The boat glided into the inlet, where the fishermen kept their boats. There were a few skiffs already resting there, tied gently to wooden stakes. His feet dragged slightly on the ground. A cat slipped out of view into the shadows. A rooster turned in its sleep, ruffling its feathers without waking. their sails folded and their nets drying in the night air. No dogs, the scent of old netting, salt, and wood filled the room. No voices. He could not see the sky from inside the hut, but he could still imagine the stars, still imagine the sea, quiet and wide. No lights, whole, alive, swimming in circles beneath the boat, rising slowly, turning in the light, its great fin cutting the water, its body shining. They trembled as he worked. Still, he tied the knot slowly, carefully, the way he always had. Santiago said nothing. Only the faintest light from the stars entered through a small crack in the wall. Young lions, golden in the sun. They walked along the shore, calm, slow, full of strength. It painted a soft, broken line across the floor, like moonlight, but thinner. The sea touched his legs, cool and smooth. He held the boat steady and began to tie it to a rock. The rope was rough in his hands. His fingers no longer moved quickly. The marlin's skeleton floated beside the boat. It knocked gently against the hull with a hollow sound, soft, like a memory. Santiago stood and looked at it one last time. The salt from the sea had gathered on his skin in a fine white crust. "You were a great fish," he whispered. "No one can say otherwise." He took one slow breath, then began to walk. The air inside the hut was still. A breeze passed through the doorway, carrying the faint sound of waves. Then he turned and stepped onto the shore. The sand felt dry beneath his feet. It was warm from the day's sun, but the night breeze cooled it. He looked around. The village was silent. All the doors were closed, the windows dark. The palm trees stood still, their leaves quiet in the wind. He picked up the mast and sail from the boat. The bundle was heavy now, more than usual. His shoulders sank slightly under its weight. His steps were slow and uneven. There was no one else on the path. He passed by the edge of the village. The small houses were dark. The stone walls were quiet. The old man reached his hut. He opened the wooden door with the edge of his shoulder. It creaked softly. Inside, the air was still and dry. The room was dark. Santiago breathed slowly. He looked down at his hands. They were stiff and swollen. The cuts had dried. He leaned back against the wall and looked upward. He thought of the marlin. He saw it clearly in his mind. And then, just as clearly, he saw the skeleton, the long spine, the curved ribs, the sharp head. He did not feel sadness. He whispered again, "I went too far." And then he lay down. He pulled the thin blanket over his shoulders. The cot creaked softly beneath him. The pillow was flat and warm from the day. Santiago closed his eyes. He did not sleep at once. Instead, he thought of lions on a beach in Africa. They did not fight. He watched them play in the sand. Then he breathed out, long and slow, and he rested. The sky began to grow pale. It was not yet sunrise, but the blackness of night was thinning. The stars began to fade, one by one, like small lamps being gently blown out. A soft gray light settled over the village, and the sea grew quiet again. His arms were outside, resting on top. His hands, scarred and open, were turned palm up. They did not move. A rooster gave a low, dry call from somewhere near the back of the village. Another answered, far away. A few birds fluttered in the palm trees. The wind moved through the dry leaves, whispering a slow rhythm, as if it too was waiting for the day to begin. Inside the little wooden hut, Santiago lay still on his bed. The blanket covered him up to his shoulders. He was asleep now, breathing softly. Outside, the first signs of morning began to stir. The sky turned a softer gray, then a little blue. The ribs curved like great wings that had folded. The head still remained, pointing forward, its long, sharp nose rising slightly out of the water. Most were still, tied tightly, rocking gently in the shallow water. But Santiago's skiff was already there. He stopped and looked at it. The boy Manolin stepped quietly onto the path. He carried nothing, only walked slowly, barefoot across the sand. His eyes were soft with worry. He had come early, before anyone else was awake, before the streets filled with fishermen preparing their boats. The sky grew lighter. The boy saw the old man lying on the bed. He saw the thin blanket. He saw the hands, cracked and broken, resting beside him. He listened. He heard nothing but the breeze moving through the palm fronds above. A soft gold stretched across the horizon, but the sun had not yet appeared. The deep lines around his eyes were gentle, not tight. His mouth was closed. His chest rose and fell with a slow, steady breath. He passed the boats first. He soaked it gently in the basin of water, then wrung it out. He touched the cloth to the old man's hands, washing away the dried blood gently with care. The boat floated quietly, just touching the dock. He cleaned the salt from the skin, the dried lines of red from the open cuts. He worked slowly, carefully, never rushing. Beside it, still tied with strong rope, was the marlin's skeleton. Soon the day would start, boats would leave, lines would be cast, and the sea would welcome them again. There was no food in it yet, but it would be there later. The boy stepped closer. The spine was long, clean, white in the early light. It reached nearly from the bow to the stern. The boy stood there for a while. The world beyond the small home had begun again, but inside, the day had not yet arrived. He said nothing. Then he turned and walked toward the old man's hut. The village was still quiet. Smoke had not yet risen from the cooking fires. Doors were closed. Sandals and nets lay untouched near the steps. When he reached the hut, the boy paused. He pushed the wooden door open gently. The room was dim. It smelled of sea salt, old netting, and dried wood. He stepped closer. Santiago did not wake. The boy sat beside the bed, very quietly. He looked at the old man's face. It was peaceful now, still and soft. Manolin did not speak. He only watched. Outside, a few fishermen had started to wake. One or two voices called across the docks. The village was beginning to stir, but inside the hut, it was still. The boy reached for a small cloth near the corner of the room. He wiped one hand, then the other. Then he folded the cloth and set it aside. Santiago did not move. The boy stood, walked to the corner, and returned with a small bowl. He placed it on the table beside the bed. He sat back down and waited. Outside, someone walked by the hut. A voice spoke briefly, but then it faded. Manolin stayed by the old man. He thought of the marlin. He had seen the skeleton. He had seen the size. He understood what it meant. He whispered, not loudly, not even to wake the old man, just to say it. You caught him. The breeze came through the door. It moved the corner of the blanket, just slightly. Santiago breathed in, then out, still resting, still sleeping. The village was waking. The sun had not fully risen, but the light was golden now, soft and gentle over the rooftops. The sand near the water turned warm in color. The palms cast long, thin shadows. Nets were being pulled from their resting places. The voices of fishermen passed back and forth like birds sung low, murmuring unhurried. Then they saw what lay beside it. The chatter softened. One man stepped closer, his hand resting on the wooden dock post. He looked down at the water, quiet. The body had been picked clean by the sea, and the sharks no flesh, no skin, only the white bones left behind. A few men made their way down toward the shore. They saw the skiff first. They walked slower. The marlin's skeleton floated calmly next to the boat, still tied with thick rope that was frayed at the edges now, soaked through with salt water. Another leaned forward and let out a breath. Its head rose slightly above the surface. Its eye was still open, glazed, dark, and unreadable. The long jaw pointed out like a broken spear. They did not look at one another. Their eyes stayed on the skeleton. Its ribs curved in perfect arches, rising and falling like the beams of a church. The spine was long, strong, undamaged. The men said nothing for a long time. One of them crouched down, touched the rope gently with 2 fingers, as if to be sure it was real. It must have been 5 meters, he said softly, maybe more. No fish like that has ever come in before, not even close. They nodded quietly. She stopped. She looked at the boat and the great white bones floating beside it. She did not speak either. She only stood still, buckets cleaned and stacked. The day's fishing would begin soon. There was nothing else to do. The jug resting lightly in her arms. He passed the fishermen, their eyes still glancing quietly toward the skiff, but no one stopped him. One man straightened his back, and looked toward the path leading into the village. He reached out and touched one rib gently with his hand. The bone was smooth and dry. The edge of it caught the sun. "His boat came back last night," he said. The skiff floated without rocking, heavy with the burden of its return. A few birds passed overhead, but they did not call. The air smelled of salt and drying rope. He only looked at what had stayed by himself. The boat shifted, peaceful, unbroken. Yes, no one said more, as if it had never taken anything at all. The sound of waves moved against the hull. A young woman walked by carrying a jug. Then she walked on. The men stayed a while longer, saying little, watching the fish that had once been more than a fish. Someone asked softly, "What happened out there?" No one answered. They turned away, one by one, returning to their work. The boats were being made ready, nets laid out in the sun. About the price of holding on to something when no one else believes you can. But they remembered. The boy returned to the beach later. He walked to the boat and crouched down. He looked at the marlin's bones. He did not cry. He sat there beside the boat, his hands in his lap, and stared at what was left. He did not count what was missing. He thought of Santiago. The old man was still sleeping when he had left the hut earlier. The sleep was deep. Manolin had whispered goodbye, but the old man had not stirred. Now he sat in the sand and listened to the sea. It moved with the same old rhythm, slow, soft. He saw a wave pass beneath the skeleton. It rose, touched the spine, and then faded. The bones creaked faintly as the water moved. He watched it for a while. The breeze passed through his hair. The smell of salt and sun was stronger now. The heat had begun to rise. The world was turning again, but the boy stayed still. He thought about what it meant to go far out into the sea, about what it meant to catch something so great. He looked out toward the horizon, where the water stretched flat and wide and endless. He thought about strength, about silence, and about the kind of pride that didn't need to speak. Inside the little hut, everything was still. The wooden walls stood quietly, warm from the rising sun. The shadows on the floor stretched softly across the dusty boards. A small breeze passed through the door, lifting the edge of the thin blanket on the old man's bed. Santiago lay exactly as he had before, on his back, arms open, the rough blanket resting lightly over his chest. His face was calm. His breath moved slowly. His hands, bandaged now by the boy's careful touch, rested loosely beside him. The room was quiet, rested in a kind of quiet that went deeper than sleep. It was not the rest of someone hiding from pain, but of someone who had finished what needed doing. Time passed in silence. A fly buzzed once near the door and disappeared. It gave off the smell of sun and seawater. Santiago would fix it when he had his strength again. Or perhaps the boy would do it for him. The sound of birds outside drifted in through the open window. Distant voices from the beach rose and faded again, muffled by space and walls and the stillness inside the room. Santiago did not stir, his body tired and bruised from the long battle at sea, of fish, of lions, of the wide sea. Now he only rested, as if floating on still water, not sinking, not rising, only drifting. On the small table beside the bed, the bowl the boy had left still sat untouched. The edge of the blanket fluttered again in the breeze. The wood of the floor creaked once, then stilled. Nothing rushed. The water inside it reflected the sunlight, a faint shimmer of gold. A folded cloth lay next to it, neatly arranged. He stood for a long time in the sun. He scratched his head. "What a fish," he said. He had already told the others he would fish with the old man again. He had said it plainly, without apology. One of them asked the waiter at the cafe what it was. "He needs me," he said, "and I need him." The mast and sail were leaned against the wall now. The rope was wound. The sail had dried stiff. Outside, the village moved gently through its morning. Children laughed in the distance. A man shouted from his boat. A dog barked once, then lay down again. The palms shifted in the breeze, and still Santiago slept. They did not ask where the head of the spear had landed. They would not remember. The boy came once during the morning, the voice that spoke gently to the fish, as if it were a brother. It had watched the old man drift across it, small and alone, pulling something greater than himself. He stepped into the hut and stood by the door for a while. He did not speak. He only watched the old man, made sure the rise and fall of breath was still there. Then he turned and stepped back out, closing the door behind him quietly. He would return later, lapping against the ribs of the great fish that once was, and the bones that now remained. No one argued. They had seen the marlin. They had seen what the sea had taken and what had come back. In the hut, Santiago's breathing remained steady. He did not dream now. He had dreamed all night. The room grew warmer. Light touched the walls, soft and gold. Santiago's chest rose and fell. His body was worn thin, but something inside him, something older and quieter than strength, had not broken. Outside, near the boat, the fisherman spoke softly again. A man came to look at the skeleton. A group of tourists passed by, speaking in low, curious voices. "What is that thing in the water?" she said, pointing. The waiter looked Tiburon, he answered. "Sharks." He did not explain more. The tourists nodded and took pictures. They did not ask who had caught it, but the boy would. He would remember the strength in the old man's hands, the slow movement of the boat. He would remember the pride that stayed, even after the sea had taken most of the prize away. The sea, too, would remember. It held many things beneath its surface stories, losses, quiet battles. It had watched without judgment, and now it rocked the skiff gently in the inlet. Inside the hut, Santiago breathed slowly, and the day passed quietly on. The sun was high now, warm and still above the little village. The sky had turned a pale, soft blue, with only a few thin clouds passing slowly overhead. The sun dried the ribs until they shone faintly white against the blue water. The great head, with its long, sharp nose, lifted slightly above the surface, facing the horizon. A little rice, a little fish, and water in a clean cup. He carried it carefully and placed it on the small table near the bed. Santiago was still asleep, but the boy didn't mind. The waves along the shore rolled in and out with gentle rhythm, touching the sand and then slipping away again, and made the shadows move across the sand. It passed through the doorway of the hut. Others sat near the docks, mending nets or speaking quietly. A few still came by to see the skeleton, but they didn't linger. They stood for a moment, nodded once, and walked on. The bones of the marlin still floated beside the boat, tied in place. The tide rocked them softly. Some of the fishermen had gone out already. Their sails were small and scattered across the sea, moving gently like birds gliding just above the waves. His voice was faint, like wind across dry leaves. "I'm tired, just a long, quiet understanding." The boy returned to the hut in the afternoon. He brought food, simple and warm. He sat by the old man's side again, quietly. Santiago had shifted a little. His face was turned toward the wall now. His mouth moved slightly, as if he were speaking to someone in a dream. But no sound came out. He gave him water, lifting the cup to the old man's lips. Santiago drank slowly. Then he rested again, leaning against the wall, eyes half closed. His hands, still wrapped in clean cloth, were tucked beneath the blanket. The boy didn't speak. He only sat and waited. Outside, a soft wind moved through the village. It rustled the leaves of the trees, lifted the edges of nets. His eyes drifted toward the sky. The sun leaned west. Shadows stretched longer across the beach. Boats returned, sails folding down. The day was ending. Through the crack in the wall, he could see a small square of blue. The sea could be heard again from Hirtha, quiet, regular breath of the tide. Listening to the breeze, to the faint sound of the sea, to the slow, tired breathing of the old man. In time, Santiago stirred. His eyes opened slowly. He blinked once. Then again, the boy leaned forward. "You're awake," he said gently. The old man turned his head. "I know," the boy said. Santiago looked at the boy, and something passed between them, something without words. It was not sadness. It was not pride. "I lost him," Santiago said. "No," the boy said. "You didn't. They didn't speak more than that. There was no need. Carrying with it the quiet story of an old man, a great fish, and a boy who waited for morning. The boy helped him sit up. He asked about the boat. "It's fine," the boy said. "The sail needs fixing. I'll do it." It did not speak. It did not rush. And the fish, the boy looked toward the door. Still there, still beautiful. Santiago nodded faintly. The boy stayed with him for a long while. He didn't leave. He sat quietly beside him. Outside, the light began to soften again. The boy looked at the old man. "When you're better," he said, "we'll fish again." Santiago didn't answer right away. His head leaned back against the wall. His eyes were closed. But then he spoke, very softly, with the big lines. The boy smiled with everything. Santiago breathed out, long and quiet, and once again he rested. Outside the hut, the sea waited. It only moved, softly and slowly, toward the edge of the world.